Many episodes of Bluey take place inside the Blue Pup's house, but did you know there's a chance this place might also exist in real life? The Healer residence. Not many people know this, but there are images online showing a realistic version of Bluey's house, the very same house we've seen in almost every episode of the series. It's not an exaggeration to say that some fans know the Healer residence better than they know their own homes. That's exactly why so many people were shocked when they saw images of this house in real life. It looks identical to Bluey's home, both on the outside and the inside, to the point that many started wondering whether Bluey's house was actually based on this residence. After all, this place is located in Brisbane, Australia, and guess what? That's the exact same city where Bluey lives, which makes it seem like this can't possibly be a coincidence, because it really isn't. The truth behind this house is far more complicated than anyone could have imagined at first. Don't worry, because we're going to tell you everything we know about Bluey's house, and answer the question we're all asking: does this house exist in real life?
Stay tuned because another awesome Cinewave is already on.
Inspiration. Many people wonder how the home of Australia's most famous blue pup could exist in the real world, considering she's a cartoon character, and those questions only became more common after the images we showed you started spreading across the internet. Because of that, the theory that the house we see in the show is based on a real home became extremely popular. After all, as we've already mentioned, Bluey doesn't take place in a fictional city. It takes place in Brisbane, Australia. Several famous landmarks from the city have appeared in the series, so it's not unreasonable to believe that the main character's house might also exist somewhere in Brisbane. Besides being a fascinating idea, it would have made the creative process of designing the house much easier, especially since the design would have already existed before the series was even created. But if that's true, why did it take so long for the house that inspired Bluey's home to be found? Shouldn't a fan have discovered it much earlier, considering the massive success the show achieved around the world? There are certainly people who spent years searching for this house before those images started appearing online. That's a great question, but before we answer it, let's talk about who might actually be living in Bluey's house in real life. We should probably clarify right away that there isn't a family of dogs walking around and talking like humans inside it. As amazing as that would be, that's not the case. Joe Brum's house. Have you ever heard of Bluey's creator? His name is Joe Brum, and he's an artist who worked on many animated productions before creating one of the biggest children's shows of our time. And yes, we're talking about him because we think Bluey's house may have been based on his own home. One of the main reasons this theory makes sense is that Joe Brum has a well-known history of putting pieces of his own life into Bluey. Bandit is based on him, and many episodes of the show are inspired by adventures he experienced as the father of young daughters. Most of the amazing elements in the series are reflections of Joe Brum's real life, so it makes perfect sense to imagine that, on top of all that, the very house where the show takes place was also based on the place where he lives. Maybe that's why the Healer family home has such a distinctive look and is filled with details that don't feel invented, but instead seem to have been taken from a real location. Most importantly, every room feels like it was designed with the care of someone drawing from their own memories. If that's true, then Bluey's house is something far more personal than anyone might imagine. It's almost as if Bluey's creator is inviting us into his home every time we sit down to watch an episode of the series. Do you think Bluey's real house is out there somewhere? Comment #house below along with your opinion.
The truth? Okay, after everything we've talked about, it makes perfect sense to believe that Bluey's house is the animated version of Joe Brum's home. But as we mentioned earlier, the truth is actually much more complicated, because the origin of those images showing a realistic version of Bluey's house is completely different. That's because that house was built after the Bluey series had already been created and become a huge success, specifically with the goal of being identical to the famous Healer residence. And the most surprising part? It's an official replica, created through a partnership between Ludo Studios, the studio behind the series, and Airbnb, a platform focused on renting homes. In other words, for a period of time in 2022, it was possible to rent an exact copy of Bluey's house in Brisbane so you could feel like a member of the Healer family, which must have been an incredible experience. But you know the saying, right? All good things come to an end. This partnership was only temporary, and today, the Bluey-themed house no no longer exists in its original form. Well, technically it still exists, but it's no longer decorated to look like the Blue Pup's home, which is a shame. However, that's far from proof that Bluey's house wasn't based on a real residence somewhere in Brisbane. There's still a very good chance that a home extremely similar to the place where the series' main character lives exists somewhere out there and served as the inspiration for her house, rather than the other way around. So, what do you think about that? Changes. If those images of a house resembling the Healer residence were just photos of an official replica, then how could Bluey's real house exist in Brisbane and still not have been found? Well, we told you we were going to explain how this residence could remain hidden in the middle of such a populated city, and now we're going to keep that promise. It's possible that, in certain episodes of the series, you've discovered a room in the Healer residence that you had never seen before. Don't worry, it's not because you weren't paying attention. The artists behind the show have actually confirmed that they constantly modify the Blue Pup's house and add new rooms whenever the story of a particular episode requires it. And maybe that's exactly the reason why nobody has ever found the house that inspired Bluey's home in real life. The house does exist, but the artists who create the show's backgrounds have modified the Healer residence so much that, at some point during the show's development, it became quite different from the house that originally inspired it, even though the two still share similarities. This is actually very common and part of the creative process involved in making a television series. Intentional changes. Going even further, it's possible that some of these changes were made intentionally to prevent fans from finding the real house that inspired the Healer's home. It may sound strange, but the team behind the series has good reasons for not wanting fans to discover the real-life version of this house. After all, if that happened, the residence would be visited daily by fans, and there would also be countless people taking photos of the property. That may not sound like a big problem at first, but it would become very problematic if people were still living there. Just imagine living in a place that constantly attracts complete strangers. And before you think we're exaggerating, this sort of thing has happened with other houses used in movies and television shows. One example outside the world of children's animation is Breaking Bad, an extremely popular series that aired between 2008 and 2013. The home of the main character, Walter White, exists in real life. Because of that, many fans still visit the location to this day and do some pretty disrespectful things, such as throwing pizza onto the roof of the house, a reference to a famous scene in the series where Walter White does the exact same thing during a moment of anger. Can you imagine how frustrating that must be for the people who live there? So maybe that's the real reason nobody has ever found the real-life version of the Healer residence. The artists didn't change the appearance of different parts of the house only because they thought it would look better, but also to protect the privacy of the people who might live there. The subscribe button is small, but it makes a big difference. Click it and hit the bell right now. Several houses. Another possibility that makes a lot of sense and that we can't ignore is that Bluey's house might not be based on just one house, but on several. It has already been confirmed that the Healer residence is based on the style of classic Australian homes, which were very popular in the past. So it's entirely possible that multiple houses of this type were used as inspiration. Just imagine. The living room could have come from one house, the kitchen from another, the backyard from a third, and so on. If that's the case, then finding Bluey's house in real life would be impossible, because each part of it would exist in a different residence. But if it were possible to take and combine rooms from different houses scattered across Australia, we could probably recreate Bluey's house in real life. Bluey's world. Even though we still haven't found the real-life inspiration for Bluey's house and can no longer visit the official replica that was available to rent in the past, there is still a way for you to visit the Healer residence. Just head to Bluey's World, a tourist attraction in Brisbane that features a replica of Bluey's house. In fact, the attraction doesn't just recreate the Blue Pup's home. It also recreates several other locations from the series, so any Bluey fan, as long as they're willing to spend the money, can take part in this amazing experience. Would you visit a place like this? Brisbane Airport. If there's one place that appears in Bluey and can actually be visited in real life, it's the Brisbane Airport scene in Curry Quest, where Bandit boards a plane for a work trip. Many people see it and assume it's just a generic airport, but the location really does exist in the city of Brisbane, just like many other places featured throughout the series. Benjamina Place Park. The same thing we said about the airport can also be said about the park we see in Turtle Boy, where Bingo and Dougie go to play without ever meeting each other. This small park is also located in Brisbane and looks remarkably similar to the way it appears in the series. Thanks for watching till the end. Now choose one of the two videos we left on the screen and keep having fun with us.